The morning sun had barely climbed above the rooftops when Rowan Mercer froze in the middle of a crowded city square. His coffee slipped from his trembling fingers and shattered across the pavement, but he never noticed. 20 years ago, he had buried the love of his life. He had stood beside a polished wooden coffin, whispered his final goodbye, and somehow found the strength to raise their infant son alone. Yet now, standing only a few yards away, was the unmistakable face of the woman he had mourned for 2 decades. She looked older, worn by time, but undeniably alive. Even more shocking was the young woman beside her. The stranger's eyes were identical to Rowan's, carrying the same quiet blue that had stared back at him in the mirror every morning of his life. In that single impossible moment, everything he believed about love, grief, and destiny collapsed. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps bring more emotional stories like this to people around the world. For 20 years, Rowan had lived a life built on sacrifice. After losing his wife, Maris, in what everyone believed was a devastating ferry accident, he devoted every waking hour to raising their little boy, Owen. There were no grandparents willing to help, no close relatives to lean on, and very little money. Rowan worked construction during the day and cleaned office buildings at night. He learned how to braid tiny shoelaces, prepare school lunches, comfort nightmares, and cheer louder than anyone at soccer games. Every birthday ended with Rowan quietly placing fresh flowers beneath Maris's photograph, telling Owen stories about the mother he would never remember. Those memories became sacred treasures, carefully protected because they were all that remained. Life was never easy, but hardship slowly shaped Rowan into a man admired by everyone who truly knew him. His rough hands carried years of honest work, while the gentle kindness in his heart never disappeared despite the loneliness that followed him everywhere. Friends encouraged him to remarry, insisting he deserved happiness again. Rowan always smiled politely before changing the subject. He never believed another love could replace the woman who had filled every corner of his heart. Instead, he poured all his love into Owen, determined that his son would never feel abandoned even though life had taken so much from both of them. As the years passed, Owen grew into a thoughtful young man with dreams of becoming an engineer. Rowan watched proudly from the audience during every graduation, every achievement, every milestone. Although his body grew older and more tired, seeing Owen succeed made every painful sacrifice worthwhile. Deep inside, however, Rowan carried an emptiness that no accomplishment could fill. Every sunrise reminded him of another day Maris never got to see. Every holiday brought silent tears hidden behind grateful smiles. The encounter in the city square happened on an ordinary Tuesday that should have been completely forgettable. Rowan had taken a rare day off to buy supplies for repairing his aging house. He wasn't searching for miracles. He wasn't expecting answers. Fate simply placed him in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment. The woman turned slowly, and their eyes met. Time stopped. Her face drained of color as disbelief spread across it. Rowan felt every heartbeat echo through his chest like thunder. The young woman standing beside her looked from one stranger to the other, confused by the overwhelming emotion filling the air. People continued walking around them, unaware that 3 lives had just collided after decades of painful separation. Rowan followed them from a respectful distance until they entered a quiet public garden. There, beneath tall oak trees shimmering in the warm daylight, the truth began revealing itself piece by piece. 20 years earlier, Maris had survived the ferry disaster but suffered severe injuries and complete memory loss. Rescued without identification, she had been transferred hundreds of miles away during the emergency chaos. Officials mistakenly listed her among the deceased after confusing hospital records with passenger manifests. Believing no family remained, she eventually built another life under the guidance of people who thought they were helping an abandoned survivor start over. Although fragments of her past occasionally surfaced in dreams, nothing ever became clear enough to lead her home. Doctors told her forcing lost memories could be dangerous. She trusted them. She accepted the empty spaces in her mind and tried to move forward despite constantly feeling that someone important was missing from her heart. Years later, Maris married a widower named Ellis, a gentle teacher who accepted her mysterious past without questions. Together they raised his niece after tragedy claimed her parents. That young girl, named Alara, grew up believing Ellis was her father. Only after Ellis passed away from illness did Maris discover documents revealing that Alara had actually been adopted through an emergency guardianship arrangement. Searching through Ellis's papers also uncovered clues about the ferry accident that had erased her own identity. Determined to understand who she had once been, Maris spent months researching old newspaper archives, hospital records, and missing person reports. Every discovery brought another painful memory flooding back. Faces appeared in forgotten dreams. Familiar places suddenly made sense. Then one faded newspaper photograph stopped her heart. Standing beside rescue workers was Rowan, desperately searching for survivors while holding baby Owen in his arms. At that instant, every lost memory returned. She had spent weeks gathering enough courage to return to the city where everything began. She never imagined Rowan would appear before her on her very first morning back. As Rowan absorbed the unimaginable story, another mystery lingered. The young woman beside Maris carried his unmistakable eyes despite sharing no blood with him. The explanation arrived through quiet heartbreak. Alara had never known her biological family. During her search into the adoption records, Maris discovered that Alara's birth father had been Rowan's younger brother, Callan, who had died overseas before learning he had become a father. The baby's struggling mother had passed away shortly after childbirth, leaving Ellis to adopt his orphan niece without revealing the truth. Genetics had quietly preserved the Mercer family's striking blue eyes across another generation. Rowan looked at Alara with overwhelming emotion. She wasn't his daughter, yet she was family. His brother's child had unknowingly spent her entire life only miles away from the uncle who would have loved her without hesitation. Life had stolen decades they could never recover. The following months became a slow journey of healing rather than instant happiness. Some wounds were simply too deep to disappear overnight. Owen struggled to accept that the mother he had mourned all his life had been alive somewhere beyond his reach. Maris carried crushing guilt even though none of the tragedy had been her fault. Rowan wrestled with feelings of anger toward the mistakes that had stolen 20 irreplaceable years while simultaneously feeling grateful that fate had finally reunited them. Instead of pretending nothing had happened, they chose patience. Family dinners began awkwardly before slowly filling with laughter. Old photographs became bridges connecting forgotten memories with cherished stories. Rowan showed Maris every handmade birthday card Owen had created for the mother he never stopped loving. Maris cried over every single one, realizing her absence had never erased her place in her son's heart. Alara also discovered something she had secretly longed for her entire life. Growing up without knowing her true origins had left invisible scars she rarely admitted. Rowan welcomed her with quiet consistency rather than dramatic promises. He attended her university graduation, helped repair her first apartment, and proudly introduced her as his niece whenever anyone asked. Family, he believed, was measured by love far more than circumstance. One bright Saturday afternoon, the entire family gathered beside a peaceful lake where Rowan had once proposed to Maris many years earlier. The sunlight danced across gentle waves while children played nearby and birds drifted lazily through the clear blue sky. There were no grand speeches, no attempts to reclaim lost time, only quiet appreciation for the miracle of sharing the same moment together. Rowan realized that although the past could never be rewritten, the future still held countless pages waiting to be filled with hope. He finally understood that love is stronger than tragedy, stronger than distance, and even stronger than time itself. Some people disappear from our lives through cruel circumstances beyond anyone's control, but genuine love never truly dies. It patiently waits, sometimes for years, until broken hearts are ready to find one another again. As seasons changed, Rowan's home transformed from a place haunted by silence into one overflowing with warmth. Sunday breakfasts became family traditions. Holiday celebrations grew louder every year. The empty chair that had symbolized unbearable loss was finally occupied again, not because the pain had vanished, but because forgiveness had made room beside it. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support allows these meaningful stories to reach people who may need a reminder that even after unimaginable loss, life can still surprise us with beautiful second chances. Special request: before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Love always finds its way." We'd love to know where you're watching from, and your message may inspire someone who is struggling today. As the golden afternoon sun bathed the lakeside in warm light, Rowan looked at the people standing beside him and realized that miracles rarely arrive the way we expect. Sometimes they come wrapped in unanswered questions, painful memories, and years that can never be returned. Yet when hearts remain open, even the deepest sorrow can become the beginning of an extraordinary new chapter. Rowan had once believed his story ended at a graveside 20 years earlier. Instead, destiny had quietly been writing a different ending all along, one filled not with perfection, but with grace, healing,